They say love is blind, but obsession, ambition, and betrayal can blind you even faster. Jackson Ward was the poster child of success, a self-made millionaire with a breathtaking estate in the Hamptons, a booming investment empire, and what seemed to be a flawless marriage. Yet behind the pristine exterior, a sinister betrayal brewed. One heated night, Jackson shoved his pregnant wife Isabel to protect his mistress, a moment that would crack his carefully cultivated world. Secrets simmered beneath glittering chandeliers, whispered at elite soirees, and haunted private helicopters en route to secluded European villas. And when the truth emerged, it threatened to destroy everything he had built. Jackson Ward sipped his champagne, eyes sweeping the vast ballroom. The annual East Coast Legacy Gala, held at the famed Ocean Crest Hotel, was the crowning jewel of the social season, attended by the wealthiest and most powerful. Jackson was in his element, moving among tech giants like Jeff Bezos, media titans like Gayle King, and humanitarian icons like Melinda French Gates, who was rumored to appear that night to unveil a new education initiative. Just a decade ago, Jackson had been a junior financial consultant at a small firm in Milwaukee, meticulously calculating every dollar to make rent. Today, at 35, he was a multimillionaire, with investment stakes in commercial real estate, clean energy, and a luxury watch retail brand. His network was formidable, his presence magnetic. He had a taste for tailored suits, a flair for dramatic gestures, and an insatiable appetite for more. More deals, more influence, more recognition. Jackson's wife, Isabel Ward, stood beside him, glowing in an elegant sapphire gown. 7 months pregnant, she radiated a calm strength that drew admiration from every direction. Where Jackson's path had once been solitary, Isabel brought light. They had married young, building a bond that seemed unbreakable. She had stood by his side through the rise, gently encouraging him to temper ambition with grace. But behind Jackson's composed exterior simmered unrest. While Isabel and their unborn child should have been his peace, he felt increasingly lured by the world's endless indulgences. He wasn't satisfied. He dreamt of creating a legacy to rival the titans of American enterprise. And with that dream came a whirlwind of new contacts and perpetual travel. Lately, Isabel's pregnancy had meant fewer red carpet events and fewer spontaneous getaways, just enough of an opening for Jackson to fall into temptation. "Jackson?" Isabel asked, her voice gentle but edged with worry. "Are you okay? You seem a little distracted." He forced a reassuring smile onto his face. "I'm great, just thinking about some of the potential partnerships tonight." His tone was light, effortless, but as soon as Isabel's attention drifted, he scanned the crowd once more, searching for someone else. A new presence, a forbidden temptation. Her name was Serafina Moretti, an Italian-American communications strategist known for her flawless networking and relentless ambition. She had ice-blue eyes, an effortless sophistication, and a hunger for success that mirrored Jackson's. They had met a few months earlier at a biotech summit in Boston, where she represented a cutting-edge diagnostics firm. Their connection had been instant, undeniable. They exchanged cards, flirted over nightcaps, and eventually surrendered to an affair neither intended, but both craved. That night at the gala, Serafina wore a gleaming silver dress, the back plunging low enough to turn heads across the ballroom. When Jackson spotted her from a distance, a rush of adrenaline surged through him. She held his gaze briefly, raising her wine glass with a subtle tilt before pivoting to speak with a Hollywood director. The message was unmistakable. "I'm here, and I won't be ignored." Jackson's heart raced as he struggled to stay composed. Isabel, blissfully unaware of the emotional hurricane gathering around her, chatted with other expectant mothers about baby names and birthing classes. Jackson felt a stab of guilt watching her, her face alight with maternal joy. The baby she carried was the embodiment of their love. He had sworn to himself he would never be the kind of man who let ambition poison his home. But Serafina's drive and the forbidden thrill of secrecy tempted him deeply. The more successful he became, the more trapped he felt by predictability. Serafina was a storm, untamed, intoxicating. In quiet moments, Jackson wondered if Isabel's tender steadiness had become too familiar. Midway through the evening, Jackson slipped away from Isabel under the pretense of handling an urgent call. He maneuvered through the crowded room, past tuxedos and sequins, until he found a dim hallway near the ornate restrooms. Serafina stood there, leaning against a marble column, swirling her champagne. "You kept me waiting," she teased, raising an eyebrow. Her voice was draped in silky confidence. "My wife was with me," Jackson replied, casting a quick glance over his shoulder to ensure no one was within earshot. "But I'm here now." The corner of her mouth curved into a sly smile. "So you are." She stepped in closer, locking eyes with him. "I missed you." Jackson bridged the remaining space between them, breathing in the subtle sweetness of her perfume. "We're taking too many risks," he whispered, though even he didn't believe the words. "We'll be cautious," Serafina assured him, tracing a fingertip along his lapel. "Because we both know we can't stay away." He nodded, throat tightening. This night would mark the beginning of a series of events neither could control. In that quiet hallway, surrounded by rich wallpaper and muffled murmurs, Jackson sealed his fate with a single kiss that ignited more electricity than any business triumph ever had. In that kiss, Jackson felt the thrill that he could never quite explain, the sharp, dangerous edge that kept him tethered to Serafina. But underneath the adrenaline, something darker simmered, fear. Fear that he was unraveling everything he'd spent years building. That night, long after the event, Jackson lay awake in bed beside Isabel, staring at the ceiling. Her breathing was soft and steady, peaceful in the darkness. He turned to face her, guilt crashing in waves against his chest. She looked so serene, unaware, and so completely trusting. That trust, so freely given, felt like a blade twisting in his gut. For the first time he questioned whether he deserved to be a father at all. What kind of man risks everything at the moment he should be most present? Anymore? Is something wrong? Jackson lifted his head from his laptop, exhaustion in his eyes. He forced a reassuring smile. "I'm fine, Isa. This new deal is massive. I'm just trying to keep it all together so we can—" He paused, reaching for the right words. "So we can build the best life, for us and the baby." She stepped over, gently resting her hand on her belly. "I know you're doing everything for us," she said softly, "but lately I feel like something's changed in you." Guilt pressed hard against him. He got up and walked to her, placing a hand over hers. He could still remember the exact moment she told him she was pregnant, the overwhelming rush of emotion, the tears he'd barely held back. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I promise, once this deal is finalized, I'll slow down. We'll have more time. This is just temporary." A flicker of relief lit up her face, but it faded quickly. "All right," Isabel said quietly. "Just remember, we're in this together." Jackson pulled her into an embrace, though inside, the crushing weight of his double life threatened to collapse his chest. His arms wrapped around her, but his mind was miles away, trapped in a quiet panic, counting the lies, wondering when one would finally slip and destroy everything. As much as Isabel grounded him, the chaos was always looming. His phone buzzed. A text from Serafina. As Isabel looked away, he couldn't stop himself from checking it. The message read, "I miss you. I need to see you tonight." That evening, Jackson claimed he had a late meeting with an overseas client. Isabel nodded. Whether she believed him or simply chose not to confront it was unclear. After he left, she wandered into the nursery, tracing her fingers over a tiny pair of blue booties. The unease inside her heart pulsed louder with every step. As Isabel's due date neared, her health became increasingly fragile. Doctors advised strict rest and warned her to avoid any kind of emotional stress. She needed Jackson now, not just his income or his name, but his attention, his presence, his love. She wanted to talk about her fears, her dreams, the way the baby fluttered beneath her ribs. But Jackson was only half present, even when he was home. Most of the time his body was there, but his mind was across town. In truth, he was buried in a high-stakes negotiation with a group of global investors to close a $150 million deal on a prime development in Manhattan. The project, an upscale hotel, high-rise condos, and elite retail, was the culmination of years of hustle. If it went through, Jackson would enter the ranks of East Coast moguls, a goal born from his cramped days in a walk-up apartment in Milwaukee. Meanwhile, Serafina had begun pressing harder. She wanted more. She suggested it was time to leave Isabel altogether, before the baby made things more difficult. When Jackson hesitated, Serafina reminded him of the adrenaline they shared, their shared vision, the dynasty they could build. Jackson's nights became unbearable, haunted by sleeplessness, haunted by Isabel's gentle smile and Serafina's seductive promises. Each time he touched his wife, he felt the ghost of betrayal clinging to his fingertips. He hated himself for the thrill he still felt when Serafina called. But worse, he hated the man he was becoming, a man living in two worlds, loyal to neither. Between Serafina's pressure and Isabel's quiet pleas, Jackson began to crack. Each day was a frantic cycle of investor calls, stolen moments with Serafina, and increasingly emotional messages from Isabel. The guilt gnawed at him, but walking away from the affair felt like losing the one thing that made him feel alive. Then, one night, Isabel made a desperate call. A sudden pain in her lower back sent fear shooting through her. She called Jackson again and again, but it went to voicemail. In panic, she reached out to his assistant, who reluctantly admitted Jackson was at a private dinner discussing a business venture. Isabel, trembling, clutched her phone. She knew Jackson's deal was vital, but her chest thudded with fear. What if something was wrong with the pregnancy, and he wasn't there? At last, Jackson answered. "Isa, I'm in the middle of something urgent," he whispered sharply, stepping outside the upscale bistro where he'd been dining with Serafina and two key investors. "Is this really necessary?" "Jackson," she said through tears. "I'm in pain. I'm scared. Something feels wrong." A flicker of concern crossed his face. "Did you call Dr. Marshall?" She nodded, though he couldn't see. "He's on his way, but I need you, Jackson. Please, come home." The moment stretched painfully thin. Jackson glanced back through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Serafina watched him from inside, her gaze firm, willing him to end the call. The investors sipped wine, checking their phones. The dinner was pivotal for his future, yet Isabel's voice shook with real fear. "Okay," Jackson said quietly, rubbing his forehead. "I'm coming home. I'm on my way." When he returned to the table, Serafina arched an eyebrow. "You're leaving?" "My wife. She's having complications. I have to go." Serafina's eyes cooled. These men came in from Zurich for this. Jackson's jaw tightened. "I can't ignore Isabel's needs right now." He paid the bill, offered a rushed apology to the investors, and left. Serafina's eyes followed him with burning disapproval. She hated how Isabel, miles away, still had the power to pull Jackson back. Meanwhile, Isabel lay curled at home, pain radiating through her back. When Jackson arrived, he found her pale, out of breath, tears tracing her cheeks. Dr. Marshall had already arrived. After examining her, he confirmed the baby was stable, but warned that her stress was dangerously high. She didn't just need promises, she needed support. Now, that night Jackson slept uneasily. Isabel drifted off in his arms, comforted by his presence. But Jackson stared into the dark. Thoughts tangled. He felt trapped, unsure where his heart belonged. He wanted to be the father and husband Isabel needed, but he also craved the intoxicating pull of Serafina. He told himself he could maintain both lives, at least for a little longer. But Isabel's suspicions solidified the next morning. While Jackson was at a business breakfast, she collected laundry from their bedroom. As she lifted one of his blazers off the floor, a buzz vibrated through the pocket. Curious, she pulled out a sleek phone she had never seen before. It required a passcode, but as the screen lit up briefly, a name she didn't recognize appeared. Serafina Russo. Beneath it, a message preview. "Last night was unforgettable. Thinking about you." Isabel's heart dropped. A chilling wave of betrayal swept through her. Her mind scrambled for explanations. A client? A contact? But the message was too intimate. She sank onto the bed, hand trembling around the phone. Inside her, the baby stirred, like sensing her heartbreak. Jackson had a second phone, one he'd never mentioned. She tried every possible code, birthdays, anniversaries. Nothing worked. Eventually, she set the device on the nightstand, her body tense with sorrow and rage. That evening, Jackson stepped through the front door and froze. Isabel was in the living room, holding the hidden phone. He stopped dead in the doorway. His face paled. For a long moment, neither of them said a word. Then Isabel's voice cut through the air. "Who is Serafina Russo?" Jackson's mind raced through a storm of lies, but one look at her tear-soaked face made it clear. Another lie would destroy what was left. He began to stammer. She's a work associate." Isabel bolted upright from the couch, one trembling hand pressed protectively against her belly. "Don't lie to me, Jackson. I saw what she wrote. How long? How long have you been seeing her?" He closed his eyes, breathing hard. "It's complicated, Isabel. Complicated, she cried, voice cracking. You're cheating on me while I'm carrying your child? He stepped forward, arms outstretched in a desperate attempt to calm her. I never wanted to hurt you, Serafina, and it just happened. I swear it doesn't change how I feel about you. Isabel let out a bitter, broken laugh, tears streaking her cheeks. It already has. You've been distant, distracted, lying to me for months. How could you do this to us? Jackson stared, guilt shadowing every inch of his face. He saw the damage, the pain. He tried to move closer, but Isabel stepped back. Jackson, I felt trapped in the same routine. And Serafina, she was different. Exciting. I'm sorry, I never meant to let it get this far. She shook her head, stunned. You're sorry? That's what you're going with? They argued for nearly an hour, voices raised, hearts breaking all over their once peaceful home. With just weeks left until her due date, Isabel pleaded through tears for Jackson to end the affair. He insisted he would. He vowed to fix things. But deep down, Jackson knew words weren't enough. He could see it in her eyes. Where love used to live, now there was only pain and something else. Distance. The kind that scared him more than her fury. The kind that meant she no longer saw him as her partner, but as someone she had to protect herself from. When the yelling finally quieted, Isabel was physically drained. Jackson guided her to bed, brought her water, rubbed her back. Though she let him touch her, the betrayal pulsed inside her with every breath. She wanted to believe him, but Serafina's grip on him was deep, too deep. Even after Jackson promised to end it, Serafina wasn't ready to let go. When Jackson tried to walk away, she struck back with practiced emotion and sharp accusations. I gave you my time, my loyalty. You swore we were building something powerful, she snapped. You don't get to disappear just because your wife found out. Jackson felt trapped, torn between her fury and the magnetic pull that had once drawn him in. You don't get it, he said. Isabel's pregnant. This affair is breaking everything. Serafina's eyes burned. Don't insult me. I know exactly what's at risk. But you think you can use me and leave? You shared so much. Remember the NDA you signed for your hotel project? You confided in me, leaned on me when no one else understood. If you walk away, I'll be holding more than heartbreak. I'll be holding your secrets, the kind your competitors would pay to hear. Jackson's stomach dropped. He had told her things, too many things. She knew how to apply pressure and where it would hurt most. As he walked out of Serafina's penthouse that night, his heart pounded, not with desire, but dread. The very person who once made him feel invincible now held the power to destroy everything. Backed into a corner, Jackson resumed seeing Serafina, though now in secret. He lied again to Isabel, telling her he was finalizing work before stepping away to focus on family. Isabel, broken but still hopeful, tried to believe, but she wouldn't let him attend her appointments. Not until he proved she was gone. And then it happened. On what should have been a night of celebration. Jackson had closed the massive deal. The property was his. He returned home electrified by the win, but worried about keeping up the lie. Isabel was in the living room, folding tiny clothes. She looked up at him, the pain and exhaustion etched deep in her face. Before Jackson could speak, his phone buzzed. Serafina again, Isabel said coldly. She threw him a sharp, accusing look. Are you still in contact with her? He swallowed, nerves tightening. It's about the hotel project, he lied. Strictly professional. Isabel stared at him, her voice shaking with fury. I've tried to be understanding, Jackson, but I'm done with the lies. Our child is due any day, and you're still chasing that woman. I need you to choose, me and our baby, or your affair. Jackson's phone buzzed again. Before he could react, Isabel snatched it from the table. She read the new message from Serafina. I miss you, Jackson. Let's celebrate tonight. Rage surged in Isabel's eyes. It's not just business. You keep lying and She choked on her tears. I can't do this anymore. Jackson lunged forward, trying to grab the phone. Give it to me, he yelled, panic and guilt colliding. Their voices rose, bouncing off the marble floors and high ceilings of their elegant home. Isabel held the phone tight to her chest. Jackson, frantic, reached again. In one reckless second, driven by desperation, he shoved her, harder than he meant to. Isabel stumbled. She was far along, unsteady. She fell backward, hitting the hardwood floor with a heavy thud. Time stood still. Isabel's eyes widened, her face twisted in pain, and a strangled cry escaped her lips. Jackson froze, horrified. Then he dropped to his knees beside her. "Oh God, Isabel, I didn't mean to. Are you okay?" She whimpered, both hands clutching her belly. Agony shot through her, stealing her breath. I think something's wrong." Jackson's vision narrowed. Nothing else existed. He scrambled for his phone, ignoring Serafina's messages, and called 911. As he stammered their address to the dispatcher, Isabel lay curled on the floor, tears falling, panic in her eyes. In those awful minutes before the ambulance arrived, Jackson held her hand, his apologies frantic and endless. He could barely breathe, crushed by what he had done. That one impulsive act, born from rage and fear, had changed everything. Paramedics arrived quickly, lifting Isabel onto a stretcher, attaching monitors to her belly and arms. She winced at each jolt. Jackson rode with her in the ambulance, panic twisting his insides. The paramedics asked routine questions, but Jackson felt like each answer exposed his guilt. At the hospital, they rushed Isabel into an exam room. The glaring lights, the rapid footsteps, it all blurred in Jackson's mind. He paced the hallway, hands trembling. Dr. Marshall stepped out, his expression grave. "There's a threat of premature labor. Isabel's under extreme stress, and the fall may have caused complications." Jackson opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Guilt slammed into him, Dr. Marshall looked him over sternly. "I know things are tense, Jackson, but her health and the baby's must come first. She needs peace, not chaos." For hours, Jackson sat at Isabel's bedside. She drifted in and out of sleep, receiving fluids and medications to keep labor at bay. When she finally stirred, he gently squeezed her hand. "Isabel, he began. She turned her face away, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. Her voice trembled, barely audible. "Don't." Jackson felt as though his chest was caving in under the weight of regret. He saw himself clearly now, not as the driven husband ready to embrace fatherhood, but as the man who had shoved his pregnant wife. Because of another woman. He longed to undo every selfish choice he had made in recent months. Every time he had picked Serafina over Isabel. The baby's heartbeat remained steady, but Isabel had to stay in the hospital for close monitoring. Friends, neighbors, even Jackson's mother came to visit. None of them knew the real story behind Isabel's fall. Jackson had offered a vague excuse that she had slipped. Isabel said nothing. Her eyes were vacant. Each visitor left with a warm goodbye and a kind smile, never suspecting the darkness behind the drawn curtain. Jackson played the part of the worried husband flawlessly, but each lie cut deeper into his soul. He hated how effortlessly he could perform concern when he was the reason she lay there. Jackson's PR instincts urged him to control the narrative. Keep it quiet. But guilt gnawed at him. Every time their eyes met, he saw her fear, her devastation, and the vast, cold distance that now stood between them. He also saw the truth of who he had become, a man who abandoned the people who mattered most in the pursuit of power and passion. While Isabel recovered in the hospital, Jackson was hit with another devastating blow. Serafina had learned of Isabel's hospitalization and the real cause behind it. Maybe she heard through their social circle, or maybe Jackson had let too much slip during a panicked phone call. Either way, she wasted no time. Serafina threatened to go public with their affair if he didn't meet her demands. A public declaration of their relationship once Isabel was discharged, financial backing for her new PR agency, and a permanent consulting role on his upcoming developments. Her messages were blunt and threatening, listing everything she knew, from the affair itself to confidential details Jackson had once shared in confidence. If he refused, she would leak everything, to the press, to his investors. The texts came like daggers, each one colder, crueler. She was no longer the captivating distraction he once found intoxicating. Now, she was a threat with nothing to lose. Jackson read her words through a blur of anxiety, realizing too late that every whispered secret had been ammunition loaded into a gun now aimed at his legacy. Cornered, Jackson contacted his attorney. If Serafina exposed him, the fallout could destroy his career, his reputation, and what little hope he had of salvaging his marriage. His business empire had been built on trust and the illusion of moral clarity. A scandal of this scale could mean total ruin, possibly even legal action. And far worse was the knowledge that he had hurt Isabel and almost cost them their child. He saw clearly now. Cutting all ties with Serafina was the only path with integrity. But Serafina wasn't just after money. She wanted power, status, control. Panicked, Jackson made a reckless decision. He offered her a large payout in secret, along with a promise of a nominal role in a subsidiary firm. He thought it would be enough to end it. But once the funds cleared, Serafina demanded even more. She threatened to call Isabel directly, to go on talk shows, to publish incriminating texts and photos. That's when Jackson realized he had handed her the very tools she needed to tighten her grip. During Isabel's hospital stay, Jackson never missed a day. But their exchanges were cold, fragmented. Dr. Marshall continued to report that Isabel was improving, and the baby remained stable. Yet emotionally, Isabel was distant, wounded. Several times, she asked Jackson to leave, to give her space. But he couldn't stay away. Sometimes he brought flowers she never looked at. Other times, he simply sat there, clenching his fists in silence. There were nights he drove home without turning the radio on, letting guilt rattle in the empty air beside him. He'd sit in the corner of the hospital room, silent, watching her sleep. Every beep of the monitor was a reminder of what he had nearly lost. He memorized the curve of her shoulder beneath the blanket, the way her breath hitched in sleep. She was alive, but the love she once held for him seemed barely breathing. One afternoon, with sunlight pouring through the half-drawn blinds, Jackson finally broke the silence. "Isabel, I can't apologize enough for what I've done. It was unforgivable, and I hate the man I've become." She remained still, eyes locked on the window. His voice trembled. "I let ambition blind me. I let lust for success and for Serafina pull me off course. But I swear to you, I want to fix this. I'll do anything to make it right." Isabel blinked back tears. "Then end it. End it for good. Cut her out of your life and tell me the truth about everything." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I will. I promise." She turned to him, her eyes searching his face for any hint of a lie. "Jackson, this isn't just about you and me anymore. I'm bringing a child into this world, and I can't live in this chaos. If you want to make things right, you have to be honest, and put our family first. Really put us first." Jackson reached for her hand, and relief swept over him when she didn't pull away. "I will, Isabel. I swear it." In that hospital room, Jackson felt something stir inside him. A fragile ember of hope. He finally understood just how close he'd come to losing everything. The deception had already caused irreparable harm, but maybe, just maybe, there was still something to save. Grasping for redemption, Jackson requested one final meeting with Serafina at her high-rise in downtown Chicago. He didn't come empty-handed. His legal team had prepared a cease-and-desist letter, warning Serafina that any continued attempts at blackmail would trigger swift legal retaliation. He also brought a single check, returning the hush money he had once paid. This time, there would be no more bargaining, no more backdoor arrangements. Serafina met him at the door in a sleek black dress, her expression ice-cold. "So you finally decided to crawl back," she said, stepping aside to let him in. Jackson stepped inside, noting the sharp lines of her modern apartment and the glittering skyline beyond the glass walls. "I'm not here to crawl back," he replied, voice unwavering. "I'm here to end this, for good." He placed an envelope on the coffee table. "That's from my legal team. It outlines the legal consequences you'll face if you continue to blackmail me or spread defamatory claims." He slid a check forward next. "This is the exact amount I previously gave you. I'm not buying silence. I'm severing leverage. You no longer get to twist this into a story of investment or loyalty. It's over." Serafina's face darkened. "You think some paper can scare me? You think I care about your attorneys?" "I think you'll care about the lawsuits and charges that'll come your way if you lie or leak anything beyond the truth," Jackson shot back. "You want to admit we had an affair? Fine, I'll face that. But if you try to damage my family or my business with half-truths or fabrications, you'll regret it." Serafina gritted her teeth, pacing. "You're throwing everything away, Jackson. We could have been unstoppable." Jackson looked at her, remembering the rush of excitement, the allure of ambition she brought. But all he felt now was sorrow for who he'd allowed himself to become. "I have a family, Serafina. My wife and child come first," she laughed bitterly. "Now you remember your family? After all we shared?" His gaze steeled. "I made mistakes. Serious ones. But this ends here. No more deals, no more apologies. Do what you think you have to, but stay out of my life." His tone stopped her. She looked at him, not with seduction or anger, but with something like hesitation, almost curiosity. Then her lips curled into a sneer. "Fine, but don't think for a second that I can't destroy your reputation. Go ahead, try living in that perfect image of yours once I'm done." Jackson turned for the door. At the threshold, he paused. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Sorry for misleading you, but this is the end." With that, he walked out into the corridor, shoulders tight with tension. He half expected Serafina to run after him or to throw another round of sharp words, but all he heard was the final slam of the door behind him. Though anxiety twisted in his gut, it was the first time in months Jackson felt something close to clarity. Word of Jackson's affair did eventually leak into certain circles. Serafina, livid, fed just enough rumors to spark a mild scandal among Chicago's elite. A few tabloid sites ran speculative pieces about Jackson's personal life, but none could confirm the affair with hard evidence. Some investors began to pull back, prompting Jackson to hold a press conference where he assured the media that his private life would not disrupt business operations. His legal team also threatened lawsuits against any outlet publishing unverified claims about the incident with Isabel. Meanwhile, Isabel was discharged from the hospital, ordered to remain on strict bed rest until her delivery. Jackson moved back into their residence, dedicating his time to her care. Tension remained palpable. Isabel often turned away when he approached, her memory of the shove, of the betrayal, still raw and immediate. But Jackson persisted, determined to prove his remorse wasn't fleeting. Every morning began the same. A quiet knock on her door, a tray of warm oatmeal and fruit, his eyes searching hers for permission to enter. He didn't speak much unless she did first. He waited, sometimes in silence, for her to trust him again. He canceled social engagements. Business calls were trimmed to a few minutes, taken in another room. Every day, he read aloud to Isabel, followed the doctor's meal plan, and helped with anything she needed, from propping pillows to soothing her swollen ankles. Gradually, the walls she'd built began to weaken, letting faint rays of hope seep in. One late afternoon, Isabel looked at him and whispered, "I'm scared." He placed his hand gently over hers. "Scared of what?" Her eyes welled with tears. "That you'll hurt me again. Not just physically, but emotionally. I don't know how to trust you anymore." Jackson's throat tightened. He knelt beside her, heart aching. "I understand. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I'll spend the rest of my life proving that you can trust me again." His voice cracked as he said it, because he knew it wouldn't be enough. Not yet. But she didn't pull her hand away, and that alone made his heart beat differently. She studied his face where guilt and sincerity collided. "I want to believe you." He pressed a kiss to the back of her hand, letting his tears fall. "I love you, Isabel. I let darkness cloud that truth, but I do love you." Time dragged forward slowly. Communication between them began to heal, piece by fragile piece. Isabel started sharing her fears about labor and motherhood. Jackson reassured her again and again, echoing Dr. Mitchell's confidence that the baby would be healthy. Though cracks remained in their marriage, they fought together toward a shared goal, a safe birth and a chance at rebuilding. Nights grew softer. She let him sit beside her without flinching. Some evenings, they even laughed, quiet, tentative moments that reminded them of what used to be. It wasn't love restored, but it was something. On a sticky summer night, Isabel went into labor. Weeks of immobility ended in a flurry of contractions strong enough to send them racing back to the hospital. Jackson held her hand the entire ambulance ride, trying to soothe her between waves of pain. Redemption, he felt, rested in that grip. At the hospital, Isabel was rushed into delivery. Jackson stayed by her side, banishing the memories of their last visit to that very room. Dr. Mitchell and her team moved swiftly, hooking Isabel to machines. Labor was tense, her body still strained from the fall, the baby's heart rate fluctuating. Hours blurred together. Isabel screamed and sobbed through the pain. Jackson held her hand, murmuring encouragement, his own tears soaking his collar. Every fiber in his body braced for the worst. He couldn't shake the image of that night, his anger, the fall, the fear in her eyes. All he wanted now was for his child to arrive safely. And then a sharp cry broke the air. Dr. Mitchell lifted a tiny baby boy, wrapped snug, lungs announcing his arrival to the world. Isabel sank into the pillows, tears of sheer relief pouring down her cheeks. Jackson froze, breath caught, emotions colliding. guilt, gratitude, and love crashing over him in waves. The nurses placed their newborn on Isabel's chest. She stared down at their son, hand trembling as she stroked his delicate face. Jackson leaned in and kissed her forehead. "He's beautiful," he whispered hoarsely, tears falling unchecked. "Thank you for giving us this miracle." Isabel locked eyes with him, a fragile smile forming at the corners of her lips. In that raw moment, no words were necessary. Their baby's tiny heartbeat pulsed between them, weaving a bond that overshadowed every betrayal and lie, at least for that moment. The hospital room grew quieter as days passed. The monitors no longer beeped an alarm. Nurses spoke in low, gentle tones. Isabel's condition had stabilized, and Mason, small, warm, and bursting with life, was now the still center of it all. But the healing wasn't charted on clipboards or monitored through machines. It unfolded slowly, painfully, in the delicate silence between Isabel and Jackson. Each day, Jackson showed up. He brought fresh lilies, held Mason without being asked, and remained beside Isabel without pressing for absolution. He read her poetry, passages from old letters he had once written but never delivered. He sat in silence when that was all she needed. There were no sweeping apologies, just presence. And that, more than he realized, mattered. He had once believed that grand gestures could fix anything, lavish gifts, eloquent speeches, but now he understood the value of simply being there. The sound of his quiet breathing, the warmth of his hand nearby, it spoke more than any words could. Isabel observed him with cautious eyes. She noticed the stiffness in his posture, the regret laced through every word. The charismatic man who once breezed through boardrooms was gone. What remained was someone stripped bare, vulnerable, regretful, and trying. And there were moments, quiet, fleeting, when she caught glimpses of the man she once loved, the man who held her hand during the ultrasound, who built the crib at midnight, who whispered dreams about their future. That man had disappeared for a while, but maybe not completely. One evening, after Mason had fallen asleep in her arms, Isabel spoke in a quiet voice. "I never thought I'd end up here," she said, voice like wind through a cracked window. "Not just in a hospital bed, but here, with you, questioning whether I'm foolish to let you stay." Jackson, seated at her side, looked up slowly. "You're not foolish." "Maybe I am," she murmured, tears brimming. "After everything, what you did, what you hid, what you almost destroyed, you don't just get to walk back in and expect me to pretend it didn't happen." "I'm not asking you to pretend," Jackson said, his voice even. "I'm asking you to give me a chance to be different." She turned away, staring at the dimly lit monitor beside her bed. "Do you have any idea what it felt like? Lying on that floor, thinking I might lose our son? Thinking I might have already lost you?" Jackson's throat constricted. "I see it in your eyes every day, and I hate that I'm the reason it's there." "I loved you," she whispered, "even when it all started slipping. I kept believing. I made excuses. I thought we were just changing, not falling apart." Jackson reached across, placing his hand over hers. "I don't deserve the love you gave me. I don't, but if even a sliver of it remains, I want to earn it back." Isabel stared at their joined hands, his worn with guilt, hers hesitant with hurt. She wanted to pull away, but she didn't. "I don't know if I can ever forget," she said. "I don't know if I should." "You shouldn't," he replied. "I can't take it back, but I can promise you this. Serafina is out of my life. I've shut it all down. The firm, the chase, the ego. I see it now. It was all a way to hide from myself." She didn't respond. He continued. "But being here, watching you bring Mason into this world, watching you survive what I put you through, it broke me open. I don't want what I had. I want this. I want you. I want him." Isabel closed her eyes. The pain was still there, but so was something else. Something quieter, more cautious. Hope. "I'm not making any promises," she said at last. "You don't just get to pick up the pieces and pretend they were never shattered." "I know," he said. "I need boundaries. I need space. And if I see even the smallest crack of dishonesty, if I feel unsafe for even a moment, I'll walk away and never come back." He nodded slowly. "I wouldn't expect anything less." For the first time in weeks, a flicker of ease softened her features. She glanced down at Mason, who stirred gently in her arms. "We named him Mason," she said. "It means one who builds." Jackson smiled faintly. "That's perfect." The next morning, Isabel was discharged. Jackson insisted on driving her home. He opened every door, carried each bag, adjusted her seat, not because she asked, but because he needed to. Back at the house, the silence felt different. The once vast, echoing residence had changed, not in structure, but in soul. Isabel walked through the rooms like she was seeing them for the first time. Every framed photo, every nook that once felt haunted. In the nursery, she laid Mason in his crib and turned to see Jackson standing in the doorway, watching her. "You sure this is where you want to be?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Not because I don't have anywhere else to go, because this is the only place I want to be." She didn't smile, but she didn't turn him away either. And for now, that was enough. The weeks after Mason's birth blurred into a haze of sleepless nights, quiet lullabies, and hushed apologies. Life slowed to the rhythm of a newborn, fragile, uncertain, and beautiful. But beneath the surface of feeding schedules and diaper changes, there was something more intricate forming, something far more fragile. Trust. Jackson understood that rebuilding Isabel's trust would be the most difficult and most necessary thing he'd ever do. The days of over-the-top gestures and scripted promises were gone. Isabel didn't want diamonds. She wanted dependability. She wanted the truth, and she made that clear one evening, her voice even as Mason lay asleep between them. "I'm not going to pretend things are okay," she said. "We're not just snapping back like none of this happened. What you did, it broke something inside me. I don't know if I'll ever see you the same way again." Jackson said nothing, just listened. Her words cut sharper than any rebuke. He nodded slowly. "I get that," he said gently. "And I'm not asking you to forgive me. Not now. I'll earn it, day by day. No shortcuts." So they began therapy. Together, separately, with professionals who didn't sugarcoat, who helped them peel back the layers of wounds, doubts, and truths they'd buried. They faced the reasons behind Jackson's betrayal, Isabel's quiet pain, and the emotional distance that had taken root long before Serafina ever appeared. Isabel opened up about her hurt, the countless nights she felt invisible, the seasons when Jackson chose ambition over affection. Jackson admitted his insecurities, the fear of being average, the craving for validation that drove him outside the home. There were tears, explosive arguments, sessions where Isabel walked out, and stretches when Jackson questioned if they would ever truly recover. But there were breakthroughs too. Isabel returned to painting, converting a spare bedroom into a studio. The scent of oil and canvas returned to their home, along with a glimpse of her former self, vivid, creative, open. Jackson pulled back from business. He appointed a new COO to handle day-to-day operations and carved out time each afternoon to be present, not just in body, but in spirit. He read to Mason, learned to prepare simple meals for Isabel, and started journaling, something their therapist had encouraged. Gradually, the house began to shift. The echo of leather heels and conference calls gave way to baby laughter, the gentle shuffle of slippered feet, and the soft rustle of pages during midnight reading sessions. Isabel noticed. She noticed when Jackson declined a major keynote offer to attend Mason's first pediatric checkup. She noticed when he silenced his phone without needing a reminder. She noticed when he sat beside her each night, not as a man scrambling to justify himself, but as one simply trying to understand. And although the memory of the shove, the deception, and Serafina's name still lingered like a phantom, Isabel began, deliberately, cautiously, to trust again. Not in perfect fairy tales, but in persistence, in humility, in growth. Their story had ceased being about flawless love. It became about reconstruction, one tender, tentative step at a time. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Duval residence, casting a golden hue across the nursery's polished wooden floor. A full year had passed. 12 long, exhausting months since the night everything nearly shattered. But now, laughter filled the rooms, balloons rustled in the breeze, and the scent of vanilla cake drifted in from the kitchen. Mason Duval was turning 1. The celebration was understated by past standards. No influencers, no photographers, no elaborate catering. Just a small circle of relatives, longtime friends, and the few who remained when everything else collapsed. Laughter rippled through the backyard, where folding chairs dotted the lawn and a banner swayed. "Happy first birthday, Mason." Isabel stood near the patio, a glass of lemonade in hand, her eyes fixed on Mason as he sat in his high chair, tiny hands smashing cake with wild delight. Beside him, Jackson crouched low, grinning with abandon, frosting streaked across the cuff of his sleeve. A soft smile crept onto Isabel's face. She hadn't forgotten, she never would. The shove, the betrayal, the hospital, the heartbreak, they lived within her, tucked in quiet corners of her memory. But today wasn't about that pain. It was about what they'd fought to rebuild, and what they still hoped to become. When the guests left and the last bits of confetti were swept away, the house settled into a calm quiet. Mason slept upstairs, worn out from the celebration, while Isabel and Jackson found themselves in the living room, seated on the floor amid ribbons and wrapping paper. She glanced at him, her voice gentle. "He had a good day." Jackson nodded, eyes on a half-unwrapped box. "He did, and you looked happy today." A pause hung between them. "I was," she said. "Not because I forgot, but because we made it here." Jackson turned to her, his gaze open, unguarded. "I know I'll never undo the past, and I wouldn't expect you to forget. But I hope, more than anything, we can keep moving forward. Keep building something real." He reached out, placing his hand softly over hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she glanced down at their intertwined hands and released a slow, measured breath. "I never thought I'd say this, but I believe you. Not because of the words, but because of what you've done. You didn't just apologize. You proved you meant it. That's what counts." Jackson's eyes glistened. "You count. You and Mason, you're my whole world." They sat together in silence, the heaviness of shared wounds lightened by the stillness of mutual understanding. A few minutes later, Mason stirred upstairs, his muffled cry drifting through the quiet house. Isabel moved to rise, but Jackson gently placed a hand on her arm. "I've got it," he said. "You rest." She watched him ascend the staircase, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt something shift inside her. Not blind trust, not naive hope, but earned, careful, fragile peace. In the stillness of the life they were piecing back together, Isabel knew that challenges still lay ahead. But after all the storms they'd weathered, this felt like a beginning. And for now, it was enough. So that's how the story ends. Raw, painful, but quietly hopeful. And if you're still here with us, dear friends, after everything, after every tear, every twist, every moment of doubt, then maybe something in the story spoke to you. Maybe, just maybe, a part of your heart felt seen. Because this wasn't just about Jackson and Isabel. It's about how easily we stray and how hard it is to come back. You see, real healing doesn't come with perfect closure. It comes with the slow, honest work of rebuilding trust, one breath at a time. It's messy, uncomfortable, and often painful. But as the Stoics say, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." Seneca. Jackson had to confront his ego, strip away the ambition, and look honestly at the wreckage of what he'd become. And Isabel, she taught us that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. A strength rooted in boundaries, in self-respect, and in the courage to see if love can survive truth. This story is a testament to what the Stoics knew so well. Life doesn't promise fairness. But how we respond, how we grow from our lowest moments, that's where true character is built. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So let's take this in, not as a story about perfect love, but about the kind of love that chooses to rise again after falling apart. If you found yourself moved, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Let's walk together, through heartbreak, through redemption, through the messy middle, towards something better. You matter. Your healing matters. And no matter what chapter you're in, remember, rebuilding is always possible.